Hello, it's Karen, the Weekend Craftaholic. Thank you for joining me for Blockheads 6, Week 2. You can see here, this is my sketch plan in the PDF, and so I know exactly where my fabric placement's going to be. And I've already cut out each of these as well. So just a quick intro. If you saw my Blockheads 6 Week 1 video yesterday, you will know that I am an absolute beginner. And so this is not a tutorial. This is going to be my learning journey that I'm sharing with you. So I will be using GoodNotes throughout, and I will refer back to this PDF at each stage of the pattern. So you can see this is where I'd already cut the fabric, and then now we go straight onto the instructions. So I've highlighted in green the key points that I need to know. So you can see here it's telling us to draw a line, right sides together, and then sew scant 1/4 inch seam on either side of the drawn line, and then we can cut it in the middle. So it sounds pretty simple, right? But when you choose directional fabric as your background, you do end up having to keep doing this again and again and again. So you can see here, this was me actually doing the sewing. Cutting didn't go quite as well. You'll see the one in the centre, I cut it too close to those thread lines. I guess my margins were a little bit too scant for my seam allowance. So I had to re-sew that one before moving on to pressing. Then when it was time to trim these down, you can hopefully see that my little markings that I made on my ruler, because I didn't have the right size ruler, you can see that my finished block didn't actually finish up big enough to trim down, so I ended up having to unpick those seams and sew them again with an even smaller seam allowance. After repeating all of those sizings 4 times, I then went to lay them out in order and then realised 2 of these are the wrong direction. So you can see the bottom left and the top right, my little grey love hearts are it's just not going to cut it. So I knew it would annoy me, so I ended up getting the seam ripper out and having to re-sew these in the right way. So you know, repetition and practice, that's how we learn, isn't it? So even though I'd redone these already to get them the right size, I did realise I needed to do this again. So my next step really was to just redo all the hard work that I'd already redone twice over. But that's all good. We live and learn. When I finally finished step 1, it's time to move on to step 2, which looked a lot easier. These were just the rectangle shapes that we put in order and then sew down the vertical lines. What I didn't think about and didn't realise even when I sewed these is that the grey fabric was actually going to be turned around, so it would be a horizontal lines. So once I finished sewing, again my little grey love hearts were in the wrong direction, so I left that, recut fabric and sewed that together so that when it's going across the middle row of my overall block, it's facing the right direction. And then after redoing that and then getting ready to trim it down to size with my little makeshift ruler, because I didn't have the right size, you can see I was still way out. The seam allowances were obviously too big because I didn't have enough fabric to trim down, and the size wasn't big enough. And you can see here just what I mean by that. There's just not enough fabrics, just a little bit too shy to fill the size that I need. So definitely nothing left to trim, that's for sure. So that's where I had to go back, get the seam ripper out and make sure that I was actually making sure that my seam allowance was as small as possible. It was then on to step 3, and I did enjoy this part, but wait till you see the photo of my finished product. Oh man, I hope it gives you as much of a laugh as it did for me, that's for sure. So you can see here just how we're actually trimming those, laying them down to make a 1/4 square triangle unit, and then the overall fit is meant to be 3.5. Honestly, I don't know where I went wrong. I have to say, I have got so much appreciation now for quilters out there. The precision needed is incredible, and the knowledge of maths and so on. I've only got one little quilting block, this 2.5 square one, which has actually got both diagonal lines across to allow me to match up this. So I redid them with a bigger fabric, and then I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get the 3.5 inch overall size. So it was a little bit of a jiggery poker trying to get it work. I did straight away go on Amazon though and order some new blocks, because if I'm going to continue with this program, I need the right tools to do the job, because I don't have the ingenuity to figure out how to do these things otherwise by myself. I ended up laying a bigger ruler over the smaller ruler, so at least I knew the ruler at the, the center was in the center. Then using the bigger ruler to draw these lines to then cut it out. So that was my little bit of a botch job to try and get it to work. If you've got any tips on how to do this though, please let me know. So we are finally on to step 4 after about an hour and a half. So I think it's probably going to take me another 2 hours to complete this as it did with the first block, but that's all good. I'd rather go slowly and get it right. And you can see here, this is where all my blocks are laid out ready to sew. So I did the rows of them initially, and then after I'd finished that, then I sewed them from top to bottom going downwards. So it wasn't long for moment of truth to see if it would actually finish as a 9.5 by 9.5 when I trimmed all this down to size. I kind of got halfway there, so definitely improvement from last week where my overall finish was only an 8-inch block. I managed to get 9-inch one way and 9.5 the other way. But again, I've made notes for next time. I think the seam allowance is going to really make a difference for me, as well as really thinking about the direction of my background fabric before I start to cut them. So I'm about to start on week 3 of Moda Blockheads 6, and let's hope that I can do a little bit more accurately this time around after all of these lessons learned off the first 2 blocks. If you're still watching this video, I appreciate you sticking around till the end. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.